Hey, I thought it was high time that I did this video because I get this question a lot in real life. Slow letting go, slow burn. I definitely didn't quit cold turkey. It's just taken me a long time to get to this stage where I'm actually still signed to an agency, but I've never done any of the auditions that they tell me to do because a lot of them are very late notice. I started modeling at 18 after graduating school because I thought it was an easy side hustle to have, and it wasn't. It was definitely a lot harder than my little innocent brain thought it would be. So I started to do some time for print, which are free collaborations with photographers, and obviously you get some creeps here and there. You kind of have to be careful. You got to bring someone along when you're going there that young. And I did a bit of back and forth. Like, for example, there was a point in time when my mom was like, stop doing that, only do free shoots for fun if they're female photographers. Didn't really listen to her because eventually, after doing just a couple hair makeup collaborations, I actually resumed modeling because at that point I was about 19. I was like, no one can really stop me now. Like, I'm an actual adult who's in uni now, so I'm gonna do it. And kind of just accepted that I'd be doing collaborations because I was like, if it can't be a side hustle and it's not as easy to do it as I thought it was originally, then I may as well do it as a hobby. Like, I didn't really have many hobbies throughout high school, so I thought may as well do that. And then time went on, COVID hit, and during that time, obviously with everyone chronically online, I decided to do content creation too. Not necessarily because it seemed like it was this golden job to have to me, but just because I knew that it would help out with modeling because I had researched a lot into it at this point, and I actually was really obsessed with being an actress when I was younger, about 12 years old, so I kind of knew about this industry already. Maybe being an Instagrammer will actually help me out, so that's why I decided to pursue that as well. And after this, I basically was doing collaborations here and there, eventually got a couple paid jobs, but not that much. I mean, people think it's a lot, but it's really not. And I knew that I was going to really go nowhere due to my height. So I was getting rejected by a lot of the better Australian agencies due to my height. They'd be like, I actually really like your look, so how tall are you? And then I'd have to tell them. So that was really depressing. A lot of them are minimum 168 centimeters, which is actually considered on the shorter side for some people. So some of them were like minimum 178 centimeters, and I'm nowhere near there. I'm actually 158. So I'm 20 centimeters below 178. So it was kind of frustrating, but again, I was being signed to commercial agencies by then, which is kind of like, oh, I need an ad of a normal looking person to drive a car. So you don't really need to be that kind of high-end fashion model to be in a commercial agency, and that's who I was being signed with a lot. At this point, I was being signed to really small boutique agencies, very much no-name agencies that didn't really give me any jobs anyway. Half of them were things like, hey, can you hand out flyers for 25 bucks an hour? Or can you go to this random small movie premiere? And it was so random. I was like, I'm not doing that. So after this, I started to kind of like modeling less and less just because of the distrust in people. So for example, there was a photographer who I did a shoot with who was actually just a student at a design school in Sydney, and he acted like he was the director of Vogue. He actually wanted to be in Vogue one day, which is good for him, but this is just me explaining the kind of personality that he was trying to emit. So he was trying to act like he was this amazing top shot person who would get super famous in the future, and I'm not saying that he won't, it's just that his personality was extremely egotistical and very like out there. So he messaged me on Instagram without actually following me, which is actually a red flag when it comes to initiating collaborations or jobs on Instagram, because it means that they just really want that job out of you instead of actually getting to know you and wanting that connection with you that's genuine. So he did that, and I basically said yes. It was very short notice. I remember it was planned a couple of days before, and he said he was doing this interview where he wanted to actually showcase what it was like to grow up as an Asian in the west of Sydney. And if you don't live in Sydney, you might not know that in Sydney's west, it's very ethnic, it's very much immigrant background families. And I actually don't live in the west, which I thought was really funny, but I didn't say anything because I really wanted to model. And so I brought my sister with me because she was free that day. I always wanted to take someone with me when it was a guy I was collaborating with, and we just did a studio shoot. And it was actually the most editorial shoot that I had ever done to that date. Like, wet hair look, amazing makeup artist who was super lovely doing my makeup. And I really, really liked how some of the shots turned out. I was excited to get these photos back. We did a couple looks. In the middle of it, he made the makeup artist completely change the makeup just because it was kind of a maybe big black circle around my eyes or something like that. It's very, very long time ago, so I really don't remember that well. But he was in the middle of the shoot and he was like, oh, it looks like she's a panda right now. It doesn't look that great. And isn't that kind of racist? Because like we're doing an article about like Asian upbringing and it might look like I'm trying to make her look like a panda because she's Chinese. And I was like, I'm not the kind of person to jump to those conclusions, but okay. But the makeup artist had just spent a long time, I think almost an hour, actually doing that look on me. And so it was so funny, just the fact that she had to switch it up. And the really bad thing is that it wasn't just a small change, it was actually a complete natural look change. So she basically just had base makeup on me afterwards. And I was like, I feel so bad for this lady. But very much a red flag shoot. She actually got paid when I didn't. And so that was a really, really unfair thing. And it took me months and months to get a response from him at all about the photos because I really wanted to use them for my portfolio. He goes, hey, I'm actually not proud of these photos and I won't be releasing them to anyone. And I was like, really? Not even the person whose face is in the photos and who came to you for free when you paid the makeup artist? So I said as a compromise, hey, I totally get if you're not proud of it, if it's not your best work and you don't want to use it. However, since I did use my time to actually do this for you, can I please at least have the photos, post them and not tell anyone, not tag you, not whatever. I will not associate it with you at all and your brand. And he was like, no, I'm just not proud of it, so therefore I'm not sending it. And I was like, my face is in these photos, you have them. Like, what if you never delete them and somehow use them in 10 years? I don't know, but I really wanted them for my portfolio. So that's probably one of the top worst experiences I've had while modeling. With a third-party website, which wasn't an actual agency, it was a freelancer website where you could basically apply to some jobs. I actually got a job with a hair company. I was really excited, the most I'd ever been paid, and actually quite a well-known German hair company, I think. Definitely was still very open and friendly at this point in time. I was only 20 years old and I basically went to this shoot ready to go blonde. I was just really excited to be there and I showed that. I kind of showed that innocence in the industry. The nicest person I would say was the hairdresser. They flew from New Zealand to come and do the hair, and also one of the assistant hairdressers. And when I was actually getting my hair done on day one, was talking to some other models who were there, and they were part of really strict agencies where basically they were only able to get their roots redone. They weren't able to change colors completely. They told me they were all being paid about $700. I went up to the head organizer of this shoot and he said, that's nothing to do with me. We just posted this job onto that website and that means that they have probably taken some money from you. Scammed me of over half of what I was meant to be paid. So let's say the other model said 700, then they definitely took over 350. Getting their roots done, I'm getting a black to blonde change. I kind of have to see that as okay. And the head hairdresser assured me that this would have cost basically $1,000 if I had gotten it done myself. So I was like, okay, let's let that slide, but still something else in the industry that's definitely really bad to have scammed a young girl like me into doing, and there was no way for me to know the actual price, obviously. Everyone kind of pretending to be friendly on their face, but then on the inside kind of just judging each other and being typical kind of fashion industry people. The photographer also seemed quite nice and knew that I was looking for a marketing internship to accompany my uni degree and basically offered me an internship and just to even drop into the office and look around. And basically I messaged him afterwards and I said, hey, my next available date is this. And in this period of my life, I just happened to be really busy. I was scheduling people in a few months in advance instead of a few weeks. And so it was really just that time of my life. And he basically ignored me because it was just too far in advance for him. And I know that there's definitely people who see their schedules differently. That's not in my control, but I just thought that was a little bit rude. I'd also like to add in something pretty crucial here that I forgot to say, which is that the photographer also did not give me back the photos at all. It actually took about 1.5 years until I all of a sudden saw the nice assistant hairdresser post them to her Instagram. And I was like, that's me, that's my face. Why have I never seen these? And basically I had to fight for them. I had to message him again. And this is after, by the way, messaging a whole bunch of people in that team over the year. And basically said, hey, can you send me the photos that this hairdresser just posted? And he was like, yeah, what's your email? I sent it to him. He never sent it to my email. Then I had to ask that hairdresser and she was like, oh, you haven't gotten the photos of yourself? I was like, no one wants to help me in this industry. And she had to send me them. Guess what? They were only the day one outdoor photos. We had studio shots and we had day two shots. And that was really, really sad. I actually preferred the studio shots over the outdoor ones personally, and I'll only ever get to see the outdoor ones. So that's another very sad element to this video. I just never received photos of myself. There's so many modeling photos of myself floating in the abyss that I would have loved to have, and I would just never get them back, which is a first world problem, but something that's quite unjust when it's my face. After this, it's COVID lockdown in Sydney, and basically I was spending all my time on Instagram again. And at this point, I was following a lot of models, and I don't mean like Cara Delevingne and Carly Kloss, like celebrity pages. I mean like normal models, same age as me, all around the world, like people who had less than 2,000 followers. And so I had a whole feed through of all these models who seemed to be getting a lot more jobs than me. They were just getting booked left, right, and center. And even some girls who are around my height or even my height who were actually quite successful. And I was really distressed at this point without realizing, because obviously in lockdown, everything's the same. I was doing an online internship, calling my friends, uni work, whatever. But I was also on Instagram scrolling and looking at these models' jobs. And I was getting really, really jealous without really realizing. It wasn't like I paused and said to myself, oh, I can feel some envy right now. Like, what is this feeling? I never really felt that, but I can look back now and know that I was feeling that way. And it was a very, very interesting progression into eventually October time, I think just a couple of weeks before actually being released from lockdown, that I took these photos with my mum for the sake of content, because I had just ordered this new outfit. I just wanted some photos in them. And after I took photos in them, I thought I looked really fat. And throughout that whole mini shoot, I kept saying to my mom, make me look tall, make my legs look skinny. But I've always been skinny. I've never been overweight in my life. And so it was really concerning at this point when I was looking at the photos later on and thinking to myself, I need to stop my mindset becoming like this, because it's going to turn into an eating disorder. Let down by the industry, by my own self for just not being tall enough. And I just felt so unhealthy that I actually lost my period without realizing in COVID, because every day was so repetitive. I never really thought to myself, hey, I haven't had my period yet. And so it actually took me that long, basically the whole length of that lockdown, to actually realize. And so by the time I got out of the lockdown, I went to the GP and she was like, you've been really stressed these past few years, like not just from modeling, but from other things too. And so you should really consider quitting modeling. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that it had impacted my brain to this extent, really. Like, I thought it was just a hobby. It still wasn't until I basically started to retake my faith seriously again, though, that I actually fully let go of modeling, because that is the really nice thing about faith. It's like when you're consumed by what you're meant to be consumed by in this world, which is God, faith, living for the right things, having purpose in your life. That is when you can really be rejuvenated from whatever is causing you that stress. In this case, my side hustles. I wouldn't say I look back on modeling and I say, oh, that was just like one of the most horrible experiences. It's just that I had certain experiences that led me to this quote unquote downfall, which was basically nearly getting anorexia. And it was a really, really tough time at times. It was also fun at times. It was cool to have that hobby and to also share it with some friends when we used to do group shoots together. And it was definitely not something I regret, but also not something that I thought I would quit so soon either. Like, if you asked me a few years back, I would have said, oh, I'm going to be in a commercial agency till I'm like 70. Like, why not? Why not be that grandma in a random ad? But now I'm like, no, I'm actually not doing this properly anymore. It's basically such a dream come true, because growing up, I did want to be an actress, which involves a lot of modeling. And so I kind of made my 12-year-old self's dream come true, which in that case I am really proud of. Like, I'm glad that I could make that little kid's dream come true, because I used to be very serious about Hollywood. And so now I can say, oh, that's kind of sweet that I got to achieve that later on in life. It is basically just a space for me that became unhealthy, and it doesn't have to be that way. I'm not discouraging anyone from pursuing it, although I do think that there are a lot of things I had to learn on my own about the industry, and so it is a very tough one to crack. And thanks for watching.